Hi, and welcome back to this small presentation on the FRM Part 1 curriculum changes for the year 2026. Now, I know that I've been away for some time, and there is a particular reason that why I have actually started posting my video after almost a gap of, I would believe, a couple of years. To begin with, I really do apologize to my audience. But without much ado, let's start. And I can promise you that this year, there are going to be a lot of positive and good surprises for all the FRM candidates, the CFA candidates, as well as the CAII candidates. Because I finally decided that I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore, and I'm going to get you something which perhaps none of the community has ever seen before. And it's going to be fun all around. So stay with me, buckle up. This ride is going to be one hell of a ride and yet enjoyable. So without much ado, let's start. All right. So to begin with, uh, these are the changes that's there. I mean, I have kind of highlighted for the part one presentation, for the part one curriculum for GAP for 2026. Now, we'll start with the foundation of risk management first. And I can tell you that, in risk management, chapter wise, reading wise, there has not been any change. In fact, overall, the 62 chapters, the 62 readings, they remain same as it were in 2025 and maybe before that as well. But what I have done this time around is that I have graded these chapters, have graded this reading in terms of the level of difficulty and the importance that they would rather pose in your actual exam. Now, this experience is over the period that I have had acquired teaching thousands of candidates worldwide, consulting real life risk managers, not the student candidates only. And I've seen that, what are the skills that are actually immediately required and are transferable. So let me tell you, all put together are about 11 chapters in your financial foundation of risk management. But more importantly, let me tell you which are the ones that are most important, the ones that actually are a little less important. So I'll start. So you could see the ones actually the middle block out here. So these four chapters, they are of super importance. Modern portfolio theory and capital asset pricing model, the arbitrage pricing theory and multi-factor model of risk and returns, principles of effective data aggregation and risk reporting. So these three chapters, I would say, chapter number 5, 6, and 7, I cannot overemphasize their and principles for effective data aggregation as well. So chapter number 5, 6, 7, these three chapters, they are of utmost importance. I, in fact, cannot overemphasize their importance. And over the period of the years, the past years that I've seen, many questions are being asked either directly or in conjunction with other topic areas. And of course, these questions are being tested repeatedly. The other important chapters that's important there, of course, the anatomy of great financial crisis and the learnings from financial disasters. These are basically the risk cases studies, which you are going to study in your part two as well. So they have segregated part one and part two, and this has been so ever since I was a student. I actually took my exam. But in particular, the anatomy of great financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, 2007, 2009, why I keep on emphasizing is because there's a lot of spillover of this in your part two as well. Nonetheless, credit risk transfer mechanism as well as the learning from financial disaster, these are really important chapters. Then the rest of them, like building blocks of risk management, how firms manage financial risk, governance of risk management, credit, and then you have the GARD code of conduct. Of course, you should expect one or two questions from GARD code of conduct as well. They are kind of okay kind of thing. The overall weightage still remains 20% only. Now let's move to quantitative techniques, and this is where the mother of all changes have actually set in. And I say that this has actually happened for good reasons. But let me tell you first, let me, as before, segregate them in terms of their relative importance. Of course, in QT, you all put together have about 15 chapters, 15 readings, and all of them are important because all of them directly or indirectly do transform to your day-to-day work as well. I mean, as a potential risk manager, you solely cannot rely upon theory because you ought to be working on certain models. And I can't believe that if your foundation is weak, your foundation is wanting, then you could have any sort of mastery or you could actually discharge your responsibilities as it is desired. But nonetheless, the ones wherein they have made some radical changes, let me come to that. So the first and foremost thing is that fundamentals of probability, well, you need to know. So even though, even till this day, they show up in your actual exam as part of questions, one or two questions you should expect from this particular chapter. So is the case with random variables. In my considered opinion, the univariate random variable is not that much important as the multivariate random would be. And then thereafter, this particular block, that is chapter number 5, 6, 7, and 8. These four chapters are again of importance, much importance, because sample moments, linear regression, multiple regression, uh, they are repeatedly tested. And as I said before, that they're utmost important as far as your real life work is also concerned. But where they have now made something of a drastic change and they have attached too much importance are the regression diagnostics, stationary time series, non-stationary time series as well. So these blocks, so the block from 5 till 10, these 6 chapters, or rather, in fact, 5 till 11, these 7 chapters, I would say that, focus, your focus should be to actually ace each and every question from these chapters, because these chapters have, just as I said before, that they've not only tested multiple times in the last decade and a half, ever since I have passed my exam way back in 2013, I believe, November, my part one exam. From those days till now, their importance could not be undermined. But more importantly, why did so? Because they build the very foundation of risk management. And as I said before, that if you have a good grip over quantitative techniques, your next topic area, that is valuation and risk model, that is book number 4, uh, you know that's going to be relatively easy, because book number 4 actually builds upon a lot of QT concepts altogether. And not only that, if you're working as a quant risk in any of your desk, then of course you need to have a solid foundation in this as well. The rest of the chapters that's there, like for example, the next 3 chapters, in my considered opinion, they are more of a fluff chapter. That means, you could actually impart minimal effort, but you could get the maximum bang from the buck. There isn't really much to actually look forward to in terms of the depth of the curriculum. But for the last chapter, that is machine learning and prediction, I believe that, it's still in an evolutionary stage. GARP until 2027, I do not think they're going to test you numerically on these couple of chapters, the last couple of chapters, machine learning methods and machine learning and prediction. But nonetheless, it's good to have a good solid foundation, good solid background on this. So I would suggest that, chapter number 12 till 15, these 4 chapters, are they important? Yes, they are important. But, you perhaps need not go into that much depth as the other chapters would be. Now, the one that I marked in red, what about that? Now, this is where the only change in 2026 curriculum has actually been made by GARP. And what are they? Let me show it to you and read it in front of you. So there are about 5 LOS, where the extension of the LOS, I would say the LOS have actually been expanded, and it is for good. For example, I'll just read out, quote unquote, and this is the stationary time series chapter number 10. I cannot overemphasize that how important chapter number 10 and chapter 11 are, because time series is something which you need to master. I see a lot of students. I see a lot of people who have actually even passed FRM exams. Maybe today they are a charter holder, but they somehow are not that comfortable, not that very adept when it comes to time series forecasting and analysis and stuff like that. So perhaps with that view in mind, GARP has actually added in those weeds of mathematics, as I call them, those calculative things which perhaps were missing in time series, which previously were not tested. Make no mistake, in our times, we could not lift our fingers from the calculator, but in between, I could see that as far as part one was concerned, a lot of theoretical emphasis was actually being imparted on the curriculum. Perhaps it's a change now. It's a welcome change which now GRAP is bringing in. So let me just read out the LOS piecemeal. So define and describe the properties of autoregressive process. This was what was there in 2025. They had appended it with and calculated the time series for an AR process using specified parameters. So which means that it's just not about the theoretical questions that you should expect, but also real-time calculation now you could be tested with in your exam. The next LOS says define and describe the properties of moving average processes, exactly the same as that was the AR process. They want you not only to be comfortable or be working with the theoretical aspects of the MA processes, but also use them in practical terms. So as I read, it's just a replica of what I had seen in what I have had just read out in the AR portion. That is, define and describe the properties of moving average processes and calculate the time series for an MA process under specified parameters. Watch how the word calculate is repeating. And so is the case for the next three LOS as well. Explain how the lag operator works. It's now being actually expanded to explain how a lag operator works and calculate the lag polynomial of a time series process. And let me tell you, the characteristic equation and calculation, they don't come easy. Unless you have a solid understanding of what a lag operator is all about, you would actually be struggling as far as the calculation part is concerned. So I say buckle up. It's not going to be as easy as it was just about theory and just about taking those multiple choice questions. You need to have really getting your hands dirty as far as the calculation and practicing are concerned. So the fourth LOS is describe the application of AR, MA, and the ARMA processes. And again, this has been appended to describe the application of AR, MA, and ARMA processes and apply the model selection criteria to identify the best fitting time series model, which means there are going to be a lot of comparison, a lot of test statistics that you will need to adapt yourself, which you need to acclimatize yourself with, and understands those finer nuances of the test criteria, those statistics, so that you make a better selection of the model, which model is best fitted for the given series, whether it's going to be an AR, whether it's going to be an MA, or whether it's going to be an ARMA model. And not only that, which lag operator will have to be used, how many processes, how many displacement will have to be appended to it. All of those things are going to be tested. Last but not the least, they want you to now practically calculate the lung box and the box pair, so the LB and the PV statistic. Hitherto, these statistics were more or less given in the question, and all that were asked was actually for you to make an inference out of those statistics. No longer that. GART now wants you to actually calculate them and then make the inference. Okay, so that's why it says describe and calculate the box Q statistics and the lung box Q statistics. Moving on to the next topic area, that is the financial markets and product. As before, the weightage remains the same. Weightage has not varied, whether it is your foundation, the quantitative techniques, the FMP, or the valuation. Okay, the weightages have remained same. So the next topic area, that is financial markets of products, or FMP as they say, again, the total 20 chapters remain as they are. And in my considered opinion, this is one of the most expansive, the most laborious, and the most lengthy portion of the FRM curriculum. And it's pretty diverse. And this is where I believe that, if you devote yourself, these are the things which are actually going to help you in your desk job as well. So let me again segregate this. It's not that I ever advocate that you impart any less importance to any of the topic areas, because God under the sun can test you anything. That's why it is one of the toughest financial exams in the world. But in terms of sheer importance, the ones that rank the highest to the ones that perhaps would be ranked a little ordinary, I mention out here. So the first 5 chapters, that's bank, insurance companies, fund management, introduction to derivatives, exchange and OTC market. Well, they are kind of important, but you could perhaps, I would not say skim through, but you could actually can have a good idea about how these institutions actually work. It's just about introduction of the banks, the institutions, and a little bit about the derivatives market. But after that, actually, the real stuff comes into picture. For example, futures market. For example, foreign exchange markets. Very, very important. Pricing financial forwards and futures. And then the middle block, that is the chapter number 11 till chapter number 18, 19, and 20. In fact, from chapter number 11, the second half of this particular chapter, for this particular topic area, they are super important. Okay, you see a lot many oranges are there. The pricing of financial forwards and futures, commodity forwards and futures, properties of interest rates, very important, because as I said before, that if you have got a good understanding of interest rates, which is being fleetingly introduced in your QT portion, is being covered in your FMP curriculum a little bit more, but is majorly covered in your next topic area, that is your valuation and risk model. Mortgage and mortgage-backed securities. Again, this is a very conceptual, as well as a little bit quantitative and formula centric. I would not really say formula centric, but a lot of conceptual and a little bit of calculation intensive topic area, calculation intensive chapter, I should say. But again, it builds a solid foundation about how the structured finance works, especially got to do with the bonds and the notes that are being floated, private level bonds and private level notes are being floated, and how they are being structured, and how actually the credit rating agencies actually view them, and what the checks and balances that a novice investor or an unsuspecting investor should actually look into. All of those things are actually being covered here. In fact, it is being covered from the point of view of somebody who has never dealt with an MBA security. And last but not the least, the evergreen swaps. Of course, I cannot overemphasize that how important swap is. It's been so from my time, and it is going to be perhaps for the next few generations to come as well. The last bit of our chapter is our topic area is valuation risk model, and the topic weight remains 30% as it were. The number of chapters are less as compared to the FMP market. But again, this is an important chapter because I believe after you have completed your quant, a lot of concepts from there are going to be directly borrowed here as well. So to begin with, the important chapters, the super important chapters, which there are 1, 2, 3, that the first three are very important because they directly correlated to your quantitative techniques, as we would have studied already. The concept of your normal distribution, skewed distribution, what is meant by the third and the fourth moment, how to calculate them, and how to incorporate them into calculating the expected shortfall, the conditional bar. All of those things can only be learned if you have a good and solid understanding of distribution. So the first three chapters are the important. Yes, they are super important. The fourth chapter is again a little bit of a fluff, more of an introductory chapter, nothing really much to worry about. The next chapter is again floating chapter. I would say it's really not that important. Measuring credit risk is of course an important chapter. Operational risk and stress testing, they are at an introduction level at part 1. Of course, they build on solidly as far as the foundation is concerned to your part 2, because in your part 2, operational research will take you to abyss, I can promise you that. And perhaps it might be a hellish experience unless you really have a good foundation out here. But then the solid block again comes back. Chapter number 9, 10, 11, and 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all of them. So chapter number 9 to 16, all of them, the second half, they are of super importance, whether it's about prices conventions, discounting, arbitrage, interest rate, bond yields, and return calculation, how to actually calculate effective duration, convexity, how many types of duration measures are there, how to make use of duration in terms of portfolio optimization, in terms of hedging the portfolio risk. All of those things are going to be actually taught. Then what is meant by the dollar value of 0, 1 as far as the absolute measure of durations are concerned, what is meant by the key rates and the key rate durations, how to model a non-parallel shift structure. And then last but not the least is about the option pricing concerning the binomial trees, and then the Black-Scholes-Merton model and option sensitivity. Of course, the last couple of chapters, people and candidates, they do find them daunting, challenging, but in my considered opinion, they are actually straightforward chapter if you know how to actually study them. So that's it from my end. If you have any query, please do not forget to click the link and do ask as many questions as you want to. My credentials are all given here. I'm a charter holder for, anyway, that doesn't quite matter. Thank you so much and stay tuned.